Thank you, Lottie. Okay, so today we have the honor and the privilege to have Lakendra and Nicole here with us to share a little bit about their path and their journey to midwifery. They're both currently in midwifery school. So Nicole, I don't know if you want to go ahead and start by opening up and just sharing a little bit about your pathway to midwifery.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everybody. Welcome. As I said about thinking about how I was going to present to you guys, I opened up my application essay and I was reading it so I could kind of prep myself on what to tell you guys. And, I just thought, why not just share my essay with you guys and read it to you? Because in reality, you all are going to go through this process too of the application, and you really got to dig in deep and tell your path. And so this is my path in that essay. So I kind of just wanted to read it verbatim to you guys so you can hear my story. And then you also get an idea of how to write these essays too. So it's okay with you. I'm just going to start with that. So their question for me was, what life experience has prepared you for success as a graduate student and as an advanced practice nurse? So to start, I've had many life experiences that have prepared me. I had a really awe-inspiring moment when I was about 7 years old. I said, I think that's the start of all this. Let me turn this up just a little bit louder for you guys. So my parents, when I was smaller, they had a small library in their home, and in one of the encyclopedias, I opened it up and I just happened to land on childbirth. There was pictures of just women birthing these babies, right? And I was mesmerized. I was 7 years old, mesmerized by this. And I think that was the seed, right, of what I wanted to do with my life. I was that young and I realized this is what I want to do. And so that kind of light just kept pushing me through my education, through high school, and then when I graduated high school, that was kind of the foundation to pursue higher education. I thought I wanted to become a medical professional, an MD. But then I sat and I thought about it and I realized I didn't agree with the philosophy of the medical alignment, the medical setting. And I was like, what? There has to be something different, right? Because these are naturally occurring events in women's lives. That's why we're here, right? To do this. I said, except in cases of emergencies where you really do need that medical professional, that higher level of care. So I did more research and I found midwifery. I don't even know how I stumbled upon it, but I did. And I think I realized at that time, I was like, okay, I know what I need to do. I said, because this concept of being with a woman, right? That's really what this is, being with a woman. And you get to honor this completely natural phase of their life with compassion and caring. And you get to empower these women to transform this moment of their life and to be with them. And you get this deep connection. So that's kind of where it started for me. I think I was about 18 when I realized this is what I want to do. And the only way for me to get there was to get my master's degree, because it wasn't anything else. I had to get that to be this. So that kind of laid the grounding steps for me when I was about 18 years old. To reach my goal, I went to San Diego State and I got my bachelor's degree. During that time, when I was about 20, 21, I found Hearts and Hands Volunteer Doula Program here in San Diego. And I volunteered as a doula for about 2 years. And I had many opportunities to be with women during their childbirth, and just brought me so much joy and excitement. And I was able to give my undivided attention to these women and really understand the birthing process. And I had to reach deep into myself to connect with them, as like some needed me as like more of a mother figure, some needed me more as like a sister, or a best friend in those moments to be with them. And it was just really, it made me feel comfortable enough that somebody could surrender that part of themselves to this process, and that you get to experience this when them and join them on this journey with them and their family, whoever they choose, whoever their partners are. And I think around that time, I realized, like, if this is my career path, this is too good to be true. Like, this is amazing work that we get to do. So during that time, I had a very eventful time during that phase of my life. I got married. I was really young. I was about 21. I got married and I put my schooling on hold. So I did this because it was out of compassion and tenacity. And I think I realized that during this portion of my life, my husband needed a chance to pursue his life. And in that process, he needed to become a citizenship. He needed his citizenship. And so I stopped all of my schooling to do this for him, because I knew he needed to become the best version of himself And so for about 2 years, we did a lot of hard work and research and dedication, and we had faith and we achieved that goal for him. And I think that was the first time in my life that I realized a goal, putting it at the forefront and then seeing it through to reality. It just was something for me. And as you guys progress in your careers and you have these huge goals, especially to get into midwifery school, you don't let anything stop you. Right. And so that's what that portion of my life taught me, that you have this goal and you just see it through to the end, no matter what. And so for me, that gave me the maturity and the confidence and really the determination to push forward back into my career path. So I applied to San Diego State, really highly competitive nursing program, right? We all went through nursing school. And during that time, I worked as a CNA at Sharp Memorial Hospital. I worked part-time when I went to nursing school, and I just gave it my all. You learned about how to be a nurse, how to take care of patients. And, I graduated honors from San Diego State. And then I got a really great externship to work in the birth center for UCSD. And I worked alongside my coworkers now, but it was a really great time for me. And it really humbled me to see, one, I was out of 200 applicants. I was chosen to do this externship. And then afterwards, me and one other girl got offered the job. So it was really a humbling experience for me. And then I started my career as a perinatal nurse for UCSD back in 2013 after I graduated. And I think that kind of just shaped me because I got to work alongside the coworkers that I have now, the nurses, the doctors, the midwives, because we have a really great birth center. And I really got to sharpen my skills, in critical thinking and assessments and my nursing intuition. And I've been able to precept so many nurses, giving them firsthand knowledge. And it's just really been a great experience for me. I've done that for the past 10 years working as a high-risk OB nurse. I've, really progressed in my career. And so I utilize that daily, especially going into this next phase in my life, this next career path. So then, as we talk about this, life takes you in different places. So I was offered a really high position as a perinatal clinical operations coordinator. And so pretty much what that means is I'd be in charge of NICU, postpartum, and L&D, running all 3 units. And it would advance my career, right? And I was sitting there and I was trying to figure out, what do I do? Do I go this path and go, or do I let midwifery go? And I couldn't figure it out. So although this was going to propel my career forward, and I was really honored to be selected, it means that I'd have to walk away from my calling. And so I chose to pursue my master's degree instead. And I think what all these events revealed to me was that my true calling and my passion was to work, as an advanced practice nurse in midwifery. And I remember reading this book. It's called The Cafe on the Edge of the World by John Streckley. And it talks about the PFE, and that PFE is called the purpose for existence. And how, if we know what our purpose for existence is, we should do whatever we can to fulfill it. And so my job as a labor and delivery nurse obviously excites me every day. And it's clear that this was my purpose for existence, is to do what I'm doing now, to become a midwife, because I love what I do and this is what I'm meant to do. So I just wanted to bring that to you guys, and, a little bit of inspiration to see, like, this path is not easy and it takes you in different directions, and we all have our story to get to where we're going, but ultimately we all want the same thing, right? To do this career path. And so I just want to shed some light for you guys and inspire you.
Nicole, thank you so much for sharing your story. You are naming something that I feel like is so common in the midwifery journey, is knowing really young this calling, and then it takes, sometimes it's a long path to get to where you want to be. So thank you for sharing your story. Thank you. We'll go ahead and have Lakendra share her story, and then we'll save questions for the end.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. So my story is not linear at all. I resonate with your story, Nicole, in the fact that the seed was planted very early. When I was about 10 years old is when I saw my first pregnancy, and it was my aunt. She was pregnant with my little cousin. And I could not like wrap my mind around the fact that a baby was inside of her. It just was fascinating to me, right? And so I knew from that age that I wanted to work with babies. I actually thought I wanted to be a pediatrician. But then she had my little cousin, and my cousin ended up in the NICU for about maybe 4 months. And that situation, that whole experience really, I think, was the driver of where I am now. I was able to go into the NICU and kind of just see how the nurses cared for her and all the things they did for her. And I was like, yeah, definitely. Now I want to be a neonatologist, right? As I got older, I saw no Black neonatologists. And so that shifted what I thought I wanted to do. I had only heard of like Black nurses, and I had only seen Black nurses. So I was like, oh, my goal now is to become a nurse because that's close. I can get into the NICU and I can provide care for babies that way. So when I did my undergrad, I started with the intention of becoming a neonatal nurse. Long story short, I was a pre-nursing major. I did all of my prereqs. I applied for the nursing program and I did not get in. And I honestly think that was the biggest blessing of my life, because it got me to where I'm at today. I ended up switching my degree to nutrition, which has served me so much. And with that degree, one of the last classes I had to take was a public health class. And in that course, I was actually exposed to the documentary Unnatural Causes, which I'm sure many of you have seen. And that was when I learned about the disparities in birth outcomes for Black women and Black birthing people. And I was shook. One, because nobody had told me this. Like, I had gone through my entire college experience and had no knowledge of this huge disparity that had existed forever, right? And two, because I felt like I needed to do something because I desired to have kids one day and I didn't want that to be my outcome. And so I started looking up different ways that I can volunteer and utilize my knowledge and my expertise to serve my community and selfishly myself by getting more information. And I found the Black Infant Health Program. And I started off with that program as an intern. Providing nutrition education and just nutritional information to the moms and postpartum women in that program. And I ended up working for them for about 10 years in different capacities. So I started as an intern, and then I got hired on as a community worker, where you basically are responsible for connecting or making connections with the community and building relationships to facilitate referrals for the program. And then I became a health educator for the program. And throughout my 10 years there, as I continued to work up, I really rooted myself in listening to what people were experiencing. And in that listening is where I started becoming a fuller version of myself, right? And so I started hearing the same things, and I started seeing the same gaps in information and hearing the same birth experiences. So I figured out ways to become trained so that I can provide the information that I felt a lot of our moms were not getting. So throughout my time there, I was trained to become a birth doula. And I also am a lactation educator, did a lactation specialist training, and all of that information, all of those trainings really allowed me to supplement the program I was working for by creating different programs and creating interventions that filled the gaps that people were experiencing. And so since I was I did all that through the public health department, right? And since I was there, and since I was loving what I was doing, I started to realize that my passion, or the seed that was planted, wasn't necessarily for babies. It was for the people that make the babies, right? And it was for the whole entire process of gestation. Like, that is what fascinates me. And so in my mind, I thought that meant that I was supposed to go back to school and create programs for pregnant people, Black pregnant women, really. And so I went back to school. I got my master's in public health, and I set out with the goal of creating programs. After I got my master's, I got engaged, got pregnant, had my daughter, and after having my daughter and experiencing a lot of the things that I had only seen like secondhand, that is what really kind of like shook me and was like, no, you can become you don't need to create the programs. You can actually become more of the caretaker, the provider that actually shifts these outcomes from the beginning. Although I did not want to go back to school. I was done with school after my master's in public health. I think I know my experience really kind of led me to where I am today. Because just like the statistics state, right? Like, as a Black woman that is married, that has access to good education, that has the great insurance, that has a great income, I still experienced a lot of the mistreatment that a lot of my community members also expressed experiencing. And that, like, the reality of that experience did not make sense to me. And so I decided that I would be a change agent for myself, and most importantly for my daughter. Ironically, when I knew nothing about midwifery prior to becoming a doula, but during my doula training, they actually had a midwife come in who ironically was white and male presenting. And for me, I struggled with that because the space was also not culturally representative of the things that we see every single day. It was not culturally representative of the changes that actually needed to be made. And so when I saw my first introduction to midwifery, I rejected it. I was like, no, absolutely not. I don't want to be back in that space. I already work for a public health department that is not very supportive of Black people, period, right? And I didn't want to establish a second career around the same exact thing. But after I had my daughter, I started being intentional about seeking community, and Black midwives just started popping up left and right, primarily through social media. And so I just prayed and prayed and prayed. And I think God started screaming at me, quite literally, about this being the next step to take. Because I realized after having my daughter, although I could create all the programs and use all of the wisdom, experience that I had previously, I wouldn't be fulfilled if I wasn't actually working with the people, like if I wasn't actually working with Black birthing women. So I sought out different opportunities to work with Black birthing women, and also create change, and midwifery was it. So I looked at what schools were accessible to me. I also did not want to I didn't want to have to do a whole lot of work to apply to this process. So I looked at what schools were accessible to me. UCSF was that option. Ironically, UCSF was a dream school because they are responsible for a lot of the things that we see in Black infant health, a lot of the research and development with the program. And so I had ironically been connected with them throughout my time as an employee for the program. And now this was a beautiful opportunity to be connected as a student. So I ran with it. I applied only to UCSF. After I started applying, I started seeking out people at the school that had already went through the program. I found this program that you guys are all attending now, BIPOC Aspiring Midwives. And at the time, Asmara was over it, and she was just a beacon of light that really helped me to work through the application process and present my most confident self. And so I applied, and now I'm here.
Wow, Lakendra, thank you so much for sharing your story as well. Nicole and Lakendra, thank you for sharing. Thank you for answering the calling. And like I kind of stated before, it's like sometimes it's such a long path to get there. And like, thank you for like putting in the work and to staying there. And like we need you, and we are so grateful that you are here. So thank you both for sharing. We will now sort of transition into questions. I saw that there were a few questions in the chat as well. And then Lottie, would you be able to turn off the recording so folks can answer questions as well? Thank you so much.